Welcome to the Society Pod, a podcast for entrepreneurs, marketers, and leaders. Here's your host, Jessica Yarmy.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Society Pod. My guest today is a full-blown entrepreneur. He is into the content game, he's into the podcast game, he's into building his own companies, and probably has more domain names than I have. He is a Gary Vee fan, a Tim Ferriss fan, and we're going to weave through all of those topics. So let's just dive in. Welcome to the show, Jeff Sarris.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so my first question is, how many domain names do you own?
I was going to ask you that. Mine, let's do the over-under. Are you over or under 25?
Over.
I am also over. Are you over or under 35?
Over.
Are you over or under 45?
Over.
Okay, I think I have 42. So
Okay.
How many domain names do you have?
So I don't know the exact number, but it's definitely over 100. And not that it's like a
over
bragging
100?
thing. It feels like I'm like, oh, look, I got 100 domains, but it's just like it for us, for some clients and everything. But yeah, we have a lot of different projects, a lot of different things that we manage. So it definitely adds up over time. But sometimes they're nice, to direct the certain things when you want people to have easy access to it and be easy to share so people can get there quickly.
If you are squatting on one of the ones that I'm looking at, we're going to have an issue, okay?
So I could almost guarantee I'm not. Everything is sort of based on our brands or things I've wanted to start up that I just never got around to starting. I want to ask what you're looking for, but you could off camera.
So the last time I saw you, we were at VCon, and you're in this environment where the vibes are just flowing. The ideas are flowing, and I'm sitting there with my co-founder, Sam, and we're just talking about things like, what are we going to do? What do we need? I think I bought 4 domain names like at VCon, just from my phone, like logging into GoDaddy, like, let's go. I think it was just the energy of it. Like, we have to build something, like, what's going to be next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually, of those 4, have you used any of them yet?
Yes.
Nice.
And so I don't know, I'm constantly spinning things up. I almost have too many environments now. And now I'm trying to staff under the environments because between the websites and the social media pages and all of the content needs that go across all of those, it's so much. And to keep it all current and to keep it all looking good and making sense and updated, it's a whole role in and of itself just to manage my pages. And that sounds so high maintenance, but I'm sure you talk with people like this all the time where you're kind of building things out and you kind of need to build and staff as you build.
Yeah. So what are those environments? Sorry, I'm flipping this on you. I'm the question asker. This is what I do, whether it's my show or just talking to someone. So
yeah, this will
be fun.
So I think the last time you and I spoke, I was still at Kick House. And so I've since exited Kick House to Mayweather Boxing and Fitness. And I'm working on a new fitness concept called Flex Society. So I own flexsociety.com. And I am looking for an investor partner, but I'm hesitant to partner with the wrong person. So I really want to be intentional and smart about how I build it. And I don't want to start and then run out of runway. So as I kind of hit that wall with Flex Society, then I started to build the marketing agency, which is Sizzle Society. And where I started to build Sizzle Society, that's really what unlocked the podcast and thinking, if I'm going to have a marketing agency, I may as well have the podcast arm of the marketing agency. So then we have the Society Pod, and then my founder, Sam, is also working on like a Web3 arm of the marketing agency. And I know you're into Web3 land as well. And so that would be under its own domain name also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I was looking at Sizzle Society just a little bit because like that's another thread that we share because like my main company is a branding agency. It's called Spyr. And that's like what we do is websites and brands and strategy and all of that. So I am curious sort of, since it's in sort of the early stages, where are you at with that? Sort of how are you approaching what you're building?
It's been fascinating because where I hit a wall and was just constantly going uphill trying to find dollars for Flex Society, I started the marketing agency almost out of need because I started to do consulting work on the marketing side, which is my background, and the work just started to flow. And so I almost had to build the agency out of necessity because I needed to staff it. I needed to make it into an official thing. In fact, some of my current clients, like original clients, I still communicate with them on my Flex Society email because I started with them before I even launched the agency. So when you think of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, it really just came, the whole business came first. And then I started to build the digital infrastructure underneath it. So it all happened very, very fast and very organically, which I think is an interesting learning in entrepreneurship. And maybe you feel the same way where you have so many ideas and it's like, how do you know which one to chase or how do you know which one to put the most energy toward? So I don't know. I gave my rundown of all the projects that I'm working on. So why don't you give your rundown of like all of the different businesses you have at this moment?
Before I jump into that, I want to ask your approach to that. How do you choose? Because I have a very specific idea along the lines of how do you choose what lane you go down? I'm curious yours, and then I'll share mine.
I am mostly intuitive, and it really is like what is flowing, what is moving fastest, what is the path of least resistance. And it has been very interesting over the last 6 months to see how that comes to life, because there have been some things that I'm banging my head against the wall, trying to do it, trying to get it there, and your entrepreneur brain is thinking like, am I wrong? Is this the wrong thing to be doing? And then I shift a little pivot, and it just like it goes. And it's been very interesting to have that realization and then to allocate my time accordingly, because when you're building something and you're in entrepreneurial lane, like you put so much effort in, but then when you're not seeing the results, it can get so frustrating. And so to kind of see, okay, this one is actually going, like, let me just focus there. So I just kind of feel like what's flowing fastest, I put most of my energy toward that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that fits exactly to sort of my viewpoint on all of it. So over the years, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, sort of help them grow and build their businesses. And the biggest thing that I've run into, and the reason I called my show Starting Now, was people weren't starting. And starting being that biggest, most difficult first step, second most difficult step is to keep going. But you got to pull that Band-Aid off and get started. To me, the way we figure out the path of where to go is always taking action first, because there's a cycle. So it goes action creates experience. Experience always creates opportunity, and opportunity necessitates more action. So I feel like it's this circle that you go on. And once you sort of start down that path, it's the unlock for everything that you might want to do, because we don't know really what's going to click, what will resonate with people and connect with an audience, client base, community, whatever it is, until we're out there doing it. And then we see what we feel about it too. So I think just sort of that action, experience, opportunity cycle is so important. And it's exactly just what you're describing there. Like you have your intuition, you're doing it, you're getting the experience, and you're feeling, okay, where am I? Where is this going? Where could I go with it? And then that's where the opportunity is discovered.
So you have your marketing agency, and then you have kind of a different production side of your marketing agency. Give us the rundown of all of your companies. We want all of your current domain names, Jeff.
Yeah. I'll export them in a CSV, we'll upload them. So I probably have, there's sort of 3 businesses that I'm predominantly working on right now. The main one is Spyr. That's my company. It's a branding agency. I've been doing that work since 2009. It's been officially Spyr since 20. That started as web design, like just sort of graphic design in general. And then it evolved, like everything does, into much more partnership strategy, like building businesses with people. So it still has a core of design. And even though it's a branding agency, we've never done marketing. Marketing isn't our side of everything. Our side is really brand and how do we develop the business into the thing that the person needs. And obviously that goes with coaching and everything too, but the coaching side of things is very much just baked in to what we're doing there. So Spyr is the core where I started with everything. Kidney Stone Diet is another platform. It's a partner that we have. And that's all about reducing your risk for kidney stones. Diet alone can reduce your risk by 80%. And what we did is we met with a nurse, Jill Harris. She's a kidney stone prevention nurse. She's been doing that for 25 years now. And being on the inside, it was so difficult because she knows what it's like to be a patient. She had stage 4 rectal cancer and she experienced the other side of the situation. And she didn't know what she didn't know. And she knew as a nurse and as a practitioner, there's only so many minutes in a day that you can devote to someone. So she spun up her coaching on the side to try to help people. So when we met, we stepped in to help her build that into a profitable profitable, sustainable, full-time career business. So that's the second side, the second business of sorts. I co-host the Kidney Stone Diet podcast with her, and like we do all of these things there, but the big thing that we do there is the strategy, the brand, the visuals, just everything, so she can focus on what matters to her, and that's helping patients. So she doesn't have to worry about anything else, basically. And that's really what it comes down to, like what we've always done, what we've done with Spyr, what we do with Kidney Stone Diet through Spyr, and then through Maven. So Maven is me and my girlfriend. It's her company, but it's videography for realtors. So what we do is we travel all over the country and we film with people, vertical shorts and reels and everything, and then long form YouTube videos, film in their market for a day, maybe two. Then they get 3 months of content and they're just ready to go. It's easy for them. They don't have to think about anything. We come prepared with all of the ideas, all of the prompts, everything that they would need to sort of have turnkey content that they're creating. Really, they're the source of the information, the knowledge, the experience, the showcasing their area, showcasing what they know, but then we're just making it happen. So that's sort of like what it comes down to, is that's sort of where we live, is bringing these things to life and helping people simplify their life. And there's another thing that I'm excited about that I'm ideating, not really worth sharing right now, but something else that fits with all of that. So we sort of have brand, we have video, and then there's another side of things that I'm looking into pursuing. But those are sort of the three major business buckets. And there's other smaller things along the way. Like we have a WordPress theme store called Built, not Built Basics, the clothing company. They came way after we did, but Built.co is where we sell WordPress themes and just various things over the years.
Yeah, you have the full like ecosystem happening. I love it.
Definitely.
I love what you guys are doing with Maven, because I think there's a lot of need for that, where you have people who are experts who are not experts in content creation, and the gap between, what they know and how it comes across when they try to do it themselves is just too vast. So you want to right size both of those things and have their level of expertise match the level of quality of content. And I don't know, I feel that sometimes as I'm looking at content, like sometimes I see people who are so smart, and then the way that they're doing their content just comes across, a little loose or a little sloppy. And you're just like, if you would have somebody, like you guys, like Maven, to produce it, to tighten it, it's just going to all look so much more professional. And then your level of expertise lines up with your actual level of expertise.
Definitely. Yeah. And it was Ira Glass. So he hosts This American Life, but years ago, he talked about the taste gap, which I thought was always fascinating. Like we get into something, whether it's podcasting, video, design, photography, anything, because our taste is here, but our ability is way down here. And it takes an entire career to close that gap, but the gap never really closes all the way. Like you never feel as good as your taste, because your taste evolves with time. That's the one thing that I think it's hard to really grasp, is like we never feel done. We're never like a complete piece, like a complete experience of, or not experience, but a complete set of skills that we can create the thing that we want to create. And part of simplifying things for other people through design and brand and websites and video is they're experts at what they're experts at. And we've never felt like we should become experts in the things that we only need to do once, twice, a few times. So like web design specifically, it made sense to take that off of people's plates, because why would they learn how to design, learn how to build the site that they wanted when they're really doing it once, and then they're writing, they're publishing, they're doing all the other things. So that's sort of where the core of our like simplification like idea comes from. There can be in real estate, there's great coaches, and there's a whole ecosystem in real estate that we weren't aware of until we sort of got into it and we started helping people. But there's sort of mixed advice, because there's so much advice just coming from everywhere. But who you emulate matters. So a lot of times people say, oh, this person is really good, you should follow what they do. This person is really good, you should follow what they do. But many times who they're selling to isn't who I'm selling to. So say I'm the realtor, and Joe Smith, phenomenal YouTuber, phenomenal Instagram person. But when you actually pull back the curtain a little bit, you realize, oh wait, he's not creating content for buyers. He's creating content for realtors, because there's other revenue streams where realtors can sell to realtors. So noticing that and understanding sort of who you're selling to and speaking to them directly is so important, but that's not how we're innately wired. We're not really dissecting what this content is that this person is creating, who it's for. It's just success. Okay, I need to copy that, emulate that. I need to become that.
Yeah.
When really I'm something else trying to achieve something different.
Yeah. I like how you're saying, you kind of like the taste difference or, the gap and you kind of like, as you catch up, your tastes are gonna go to that next level. And it almost reminds me of how people talk about entrepreneurship. And there is no destination necessarily. It's just enjoying the game or it's enjoying the process. And part of that process is once you hit a level, you're going to have the next level in your sights. And it's going to be this constant game of, chasing, building the next thing. Do you feel that about the things that you're building? It's like next, next, next.
I mean, 100%. Like I have always had this perspective. I know like meaning of life is very, very person to person. I don't feel like there's any right answer, but the answer for me is the meaning of life is growth. Like if I'm not growing, I'm just dying. So what is growth at the end of the day? It's change. So I need to be changing all the time to actually feel like I'm getting somewhere. So like along the lines with business, we're never stationary. We're always moving, always adjusting, always seeing, okay, how can we better help people, which in turn helps us? So something else I sort of really believe in just strongly is that improving someone else's life is always a good business decision, no matter what. So if we can help someone get to where they want to go, even if we're not getting paid to do it, it's going to come back around in some form. And like you could think like karma or whatever it is, but just in a really practical sense, like helping other people, that's what it's all about. It's what makes me feel good. It's selfish in that regard, and it's never steered me wrong. And I feel like that's sort of the step to take because it also leads you down different paths that you might not go down otherwise if you're sort of on this set trajectory that you feel like you should stick to.
Yeah. You and I both listen to Gary Vee, and he's big on that. Like, I'm going to give all of this away. I'm going to share everything I've learned along the way. And, I'm going to have my other businesses and I'm going to build things and I'm going to be a legitimate entrepreneur. But his personal brand, he's not selling the courses, he sells his books and everything like that. But he puts so much content out into the universe just to pay it forward, share. And I'm really, I don't know, in the last like 12 months, I think I'm more attached to that goal than anything else. Like it's so much less about chasing dollars or chasing titles. And it's really about chasing like, what is the legacy? What is the footprint? How many people are coming along this journey with me? And that's been the fun part, is just to try to get, I'm nowhere near his level, but just learn from him and say like, okay, what is he doing that I could copy paste and put into my own little ecosystem? And that's one thing that I'm really trying to pull from him is putting a lot out there, value add for free and pay it forward as much as possible.
And legacy could sound too grand to people. They could be sort of scared, like that's a big idea, but really we're most impactful to people closest to us. So it doesn't even have to be at a grand scale. Like your legacy is the people around you. It's family, it's friends, it's coworkers, it's all of the people that we're impacting on a daily basis, even just a tiny little bit. But if we're impacting them in a positive way, we're leaving a little piece of us behind through other people.
Yeah, 100%. You have done that with me because when I was on your podcast, I don't know, a year ago now, I was thinking of starting a podcast and you gave me all these, little tips. And I think you sent me links to things that I needed to buy and I haven't bought all of them yet. But Tim Ferriss, in one of his recent podcasts, he said, use your first few podcasts to talk to people who could help you do your podcast. So this is me like actively like channeling Tim Ferriss to say like, you have helped me before so much in our first conversation. And so now I'm just going to like tap into your brain more about like how to do the podcast thing, how to do the content thing, like how to do the entrepreneurship thing. It's just going to be like basically, you consulting with me for an hour.
So that's perfect because this is where I thrive. Like I'm not really a content creator of any sort really, but helping people one-on-one find that path, problem solving, like this is my sport. Like growing up, I played sports all the time. Entrepreneurship is my hobby. Like this is what I do sun up to sundown. If it's not football season, then I'm watching the Bears. But other than that, like this is everything I think about all day, every day. So I love this one-on-one sort of setting.
Coaching.
This is just where
coaching. You can call it coaching. It's you coaching me. I'm abusing your time at this point.
No, this is what I love. Because also I'm not great at talking about myself. I love diving into other people. It's my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So Ask
Okay,
away.
but so like to give context, when did you discover that this was your passion area? Like how long have you been playing in your passion?
So 2009 is when I started doing like full-time entrepreneurship. That's sort of day one. I lost my day job, and 2 weeks later, I joined with a couple other people. One of those people is my current business partner at Spyr, but I joined with them. We were doing design, and then we broke off and started Spyr on our own. Discovering that it's what I wanted to do wasn't something that I knew innately. Like I had no previous experience with family or friends or anyone who was entrepreneurial. Sort of the only view that I had was you go to school, get a job. That's about it. And I remember sitting at my desk one day and just sort of being resigned to the fact that like this was it. The day job that I was in, I had one rung above me. Like I had moved up a couple rungs, and that's not to say anything. I started as an intern, moved up to the first rung, second rung, and then there was manager. That was it. It wasn't a big organization or anything. And I remember just thinking, I'm like, wow, this is it. Like I could make a few more bucks every year, but really there's nothing more to life. Like it was a big question mark for me.
Yeah.
And it was when the 4-Hour Workweek came out from Tim Ferriss that I think I bought it the week it came out, and I read that, and it just opened my mind to a world that I did not know existed. It was like 2007 or whatever, before the internet before you could really see people doing all this stuff. So that's like one of the major inflection points in my life is that book. And it's not the only work 4 hours a week or any of that. It was purely understanding that something else was possible. So now I need to find out how to get there. So I'm always like, once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it, which did also mean I innately was pulling back from the day job. I wasn't into it as much as I was before, but I was consuming as much as I possibly could. Twitter was brand new. I'd following all these entrepreneurs, really trying to learn and understand where I could go, trying different, I never like to say failed, but just trying different things to see if I could make money doing something. Like I did art prints for a while and just different things that were just stepping stones to get to where I was going to be. But I'm grateful because what happened was I lost that job in 2000, and without them pulling the Band-Aid, I don't know if I would have. Like I don't know how long it would have taken me to change as a person to understand like I need to take the leap and do this. So that was huge for me. And then I had already been sort of laying the groundwork to have relationships. So I just started reaching out to people, made sort of deepened connections, and then it was just been going from there. In terms of working with people directly, like the coaching and like really sort of consulting and one-on-one stuff, that again just sort of evolved with time. So at Spyr, like our most recognized like partners that we've worked with since day one, they're called the Minimalists. We have a documentary with them that was on Netflix called Minimalism. And I met Josh and Ryan when their site was 2 weeks old. We were part of their storyline is that 51 people saw our website in the first month. Well, myself and Dave, my business partner, were 2 of those 51. And they were just doing something different. They were taking minimalism at a time when if anyone came to me and said, I want to start a minimalism business, I would have said, this is peak minimalism. There's way too many blogs about it. It's just, there's not a space for it to happen. But they showed up and they basically brought philosophy to the space in a way that no one had. Everyone was doing 17 ways to declutter your closet, where they came in and said, what would life be like if you had less? Like, how could you improve your life with less? And it was just a completely different mind space than everyone else. So we reached out to them and we were just like, we were friends already. And it was just like, okay, we can make your site so much better. You self-published this book. How about we give you like a real book cover? How about we do these things to make your brand match the level of the product that you're creating? And that might have been the first time when it really started to click into this iteration. So this was like 2011, maybe 2010, 2011, I forget exactly when, but clicking into the iteration of collaboratively working with someone to develop the brand and business in a way that I know can work, but I'm never going to be the one to create it. I won't be the face of it because I'm very rarely sort of in front of camera. I'm always behind camera. And being able to work with someone and help them get to where they want to be just really strikes me as something that is so satisfying in a way I can't even really define.
I think that's a big part of the game that I see now. The game of entrepreneurship is not just you as a solopreneur building on your own in a bubble, the game and how you play it best is like, who do I know? Who's building what? Who can I help? Who can help me in return? And just collaborating with the right individuals, and then all kind of growing together. Like one part of the project takes off, all kind of take a step forward together. And I don't think that's talked about enough early in entrepreneurship. I think there's this sense that you have to hustle, and it's like online portrayal of entrepreneurship is so off of what it actually is. Like the online portrayal right now is clickbaity. It's make $10,000 in the next 10 days. It's I write for 4 hours and post on Medium and quit my full-time job because now I'm a copywriter. Like it's all of those kind of things that are, no, that's not how the game is actually played. And you might be successful with it, but that's not where true entrepreneurship lives, and that's not where you can really truly build something big. So I don't know, I've been thinking about that a lot because I'm in a building mode, and I'm like, who do I want to be building with? Who do I also want to build with people I vibe with. And so it's interesting that you 2011, kind of made that connection and realized like, okay, this is collaborating with people who I vibe with, and I'm going to shine a spotlight on what they do best because of what I do best. And just everybody's bringing their best to the table, and like, bam, you take a step forward together.
Yeah, and I like that you said, who can I help? Like, I really think at the end of the day, that's the pin to stick in anything that we're doing is who can I help? And in return, that will somehow become profitable business, something sustainable. I don't know how long it'll take, maybe. I don't really even know the path. It could be something completely different. But Maven, for example, it came out of trying to figure out what Amara, my girlfriend, could do instead of working in academia. She was an archivist at UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago, in a basement with 6 other people, no windows, all day, every day, 2.5-hour commute. And it was just a lot. So through my podcast, actually, again, this is action, experience, opportunity, I spoke with someone who was doing real estate photography, and just talking to him, I realized, oh, this is a lane that Amara could just try. Just one of many things. She was trying other things. She was on Etsy, she was on TikTok sort of earlier, and all these different things to see sort of where she vibed and what she could do. She reached out to someone on Instagram, despite like that hesitation that we all have, that she did not want to reach out, like cold DM someone.
Yeah.
I also don't want to cold DM anyone, but she was just like, no, I'm going to try this and see what happens. So she reached out and said, you're literally the first person I've reached out to. I'm in town, like I'm nearby, not in town, but in the Chicago area. Do you need someone to do photography? No response. She finds someone else who seems like she would vibe with her. You're literally the second person I've ever reached out to. Do you need photography? And then she responded, I don't need photography, but I need video. And that is what set everything in motion, was that moment, because Amara had been doing video. She had a YouTube channel that was doing pretty well. TikTok was doing very well. She had been doing these things for a while, but it wasn't there. It wasn't in the mind space yet until that opportunity presented itself. And it's like, oh, I can follow that path. Let's try this out. And it's just grown from there ever since.
And the ability to just say, yes, I'll figure it out. Where she wasn't originally thinking video. Yes, I can also do video. Figure it out. And just kind of that whatever it takes hustle mentality of entrepreneurship, I think is great.
And I've found that not everyone's wired that way, which is beyond me. It's not speak against anyone who isn't, but I'm wired that way so much that I don't understand the other side. Like I did wedding photography for a while. Like it was 2010, 2011, 2012. I'm not sure, somewhere around that window, whenever the iPhone 3GS was out, I would take photos on my iPhone, edit them, post on Facebook. And one of my friends was like, oh, I love the photos you post. Would you shoot our wedding? And like, you have that moment where I'm just like, really? I'm like, I've never held a professional camera, but I'm like, okay. So I spent the next 8 months just diving into everything photography. I bought my first DSLR camera, learned everything I could, shot as much as I possibly could. And then 8 months later, shot photos for their wedding, and then did a handful of those over time. It was never a path that I was going to take. It was never something that I'm like, this is a full-time thing. But I'm like, I love photos. These are happy, generally, wedding feelings or happy areas. So like I would like to be in that space doing something to help people, to give them the documentation of it. So why not give it a whirl?
So 15 years of entrepreneurship, what are your favorite things about entrepreneurship, and what are the things that you're like, meh, I could do without this?
So really, like I said, just the sport of it. I love problem solving. I was always into like board games and puzzles, and like not like solving puzzles, not necessarily the pieces of the other puzzles, but like, okay, how do I get from this point to that point? And that's really the thing that I love absolutely most. Like, I don't really care what the business is as much as solving the problem of getting someone from where they are to where they want to be, which I also think is an important sort of thing to note for anyone working with coaches. It always gets to me when a coach will project what someone should be. And I think a great coach meets the person where they are, understands where they want to go, and helps take them there. And it's unfortunately rare in the space. I'm not a coach. I help people, but it's like, I'm just sort of talking about the coaching world in general. And it's just sort of disheartening at times because it's easier to project where I think you should be. But really what can help someone is start where they're at and take them to where they want to go, and know that that relationship, if I do a good job, that business relationship will end, and it will end sooner rather than later, which is why I don't really love the coaching space as just pure coaching, because if there isn't anything more, it's incentivized to keep people around, to continue to coach as long as possible, whether we innately are withholding anything or not. It's just that industry is a tough one for me, because I really want to see people go and just explode and really get somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, just finding that different path by any means necessary, that's really something that speaks to me too, just like you were mentioning.
Yeah, I worked with a coach. I say I worked with a coach. I spoke with a coach one time, and the coach kind of talked to me about the need for me to time block my days. And I have a brain that is more like a creative brain than anything else, and it will zig and it will zag. And what I've loved about being in an entrepreneurial lane with a whole bunch of different clients is I can move as my brain is moving, and I don't time block anything, like I'll time block meetings or things like that, but I'll just have big blocks of time on my calendar that are just like, do work. And it's just like hours. And I find efficiency in my brain, doing that. And it's not a typical way of doing things. And it's not a way that anyone would coach anyone to do it, but it's what works for me. And so from day one of like, oh, you don't like how I currently do things? Okay, I'm out, because I can't connect to you. And I've spent years doing it this way. And now it almost, entrepreneurship has just added fuel to that fire of jumping from place to place to place, but doing so in a way that keeps my brain fresh, and I don't ever feel burnout, because if I'm starting to feel burnt out on one thing, then I jump and I do something else, and I move whenever I hit a place of frustration, move to the next thing. And I know it's really been interesting, because I think entrepreneurship also takes you out of a traditional 9 to 5 timeline, and I'll find early morning certain things flow really well. And then midday, I'll check out of work for a little bit, go outside, do something that's not in front of my computer, and then I'll work on things until 9 p.m. sometimes, just because my brain's in a different place at that point. And so, I don't know, I like the fact that work is just 24/7 in a way. Like, you can kind of structure it however you want to structure it. And every day is, I don't know, every day for me is a little bit different. Do you have more of a traditional structure than I do?
Not at all. So like, people tout morning routines and this and that, and people spend hours doing these things, and that's never really been me at all. Like, I'll have a cup of coffee and maybe read a little bit, but beyond that, it's so open-ended day to day that it doesn't click for me. Like, I don't resonate with that rigid structure, and I never did either. And I think that's really where the creativity comes from. We need that time to get somewhere worth getting. And if everything is time blocked, if it's like, okay, this is my creative time, this is my whatever time, this is that, I think that sort of kismet just can't happen. That moment of just something special coming about, having conversations with people that you didn't necessarily plan on, maybe at a coffee shop, and you sit down here talking to someone, and you get something different, a different input that you wouldn't have had if that time was 5 minutes here, gone, 5 minutes here, gone. And yeah, I just think it's important for me anyway. I know people really operate on structure, but I like it open-ended like that too.
Do you have little hacks with your brain to have super intense creative moments?
That's a good question. So in the past, I used to always have sort of, for lack of a better descriptor, one man versus the world movies like on in the background. So like I've watched The Bourne Identity thousands of times probably, and like Dexter, and I mean Dexter's dark, but it's like the energy of like a action thriller was the thing that would get me in this zone for usually like programming and like problem solving. But then if I really take a step back, it's because this is one person solving some wacky problem that should be impossible to get through, and at the end they get to the other side. But I didn't really know that. It was just, this is what I would gravitate towards. I haven't been doing that as much since I really turned more into the working with people versus working sort of in a bubble. So like programming and things like that, that really worked for me because I could get so much more done. But yeah, now would I have something like that?
You're on your hero's journey.
Yeah, basically, if I can feel that hero's journey happening, that's really something that speaks to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I don't know if I have something other than just conversations. A lot of time with Amara, we might be in the car right now because we're traveling a lot for Maven, might be on a plane, in the car, whatever, where just things start to come together and we're like, oh, what about this? What if we go this direction? Or we can add this, or people really need this. We need this too. Maybe we're the ones to make this exist. And stuff like that is really happening organically, but it's in silence. Like, to be honest, like that is the only time that I think it can really come about, at least for me, like really creative stuff is downtime, peace, silence. Like our house is completely silent all day, every day. Like she's in the other room at her desk editing with headphones on. I'll be back here or wherever. And yeah, if anyone came in, they'd just be like, how is there no sound? But we have sound. We have headphones.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, yeah, I think that's the thing for me is finding that downtime, finding the time to sort of just see what happens. But yeah, no real good hack, I guess.
I like that you have her as a sounding board too. I think, people who try to go down the solopreneurship path, it's got to be so lonely because there's constantly things that you're thinking about, chewing on, that it's good to be able to talk through those things with people.
Absolutely. It's so important. I've never actually done anything fully solo, even though it was me and Dave, or is me and Dave for Spyr, Josh at the Minimalists, Jill at Kidney Stone Diet, Amara at Maven. It's always been with at least one or a couple people, but basically one-on-one, like the one main person, and then I'll work with them. But yeah, it is funny because like that's a really good point. Like I don't think I would do any of this if it was only me, just completely isolated. Like I need that complementary person too, because I like to think that I'm good at the things I'm good at, but there are many things I am just not good at all. And to have someone who can complement and help in those areas and do their thing, because that's where they shine, that means everything. But it comes back down to finding a partner, sort of like you mentioned earlier. It's hard to find the right partner. There isn't sort of a catch-all solution to that, unfortunately.
Yeah. If someone's listening to this who hasn't dove into the content game or is maybe scared of diving into the content game, like what is your advice to someone who's just getting started?
I think the first question is always why with anything. So is it to be famous? Is it to sell to a client, 10 clients, 1,000 clients? Like what are we trying to do at the end of the day? Because that'll inform everything else. So like I've always been behind the scenes, never really doing much content for myself, but all of our businesses are word of mouth. So we don't need to work with very many people to make it sustainable for us and to help them. So that means I don't really need to be in front of that many eyeballs. It's not really a numbers game as much. Maven is interesting too because we started filming with the one person, then a couple others hear about it because we're filming with her. We have an Instagram now, a YouTube account. We post to it, but we're only posting the documentation of the things that we're doing. We're not really educating. We're not doing the things that we help other people do, honestly. We don't do that for ourselves. We want to do it, but we almost need a version of ourselves to help us with that. Yeah. So it's like a weird thing, but it works. Like our model isn't one where we need to reach 1,000 people. Like we have like 120 followers on Instagram. I have no idea how many, but it's under 200 for sure by far. But that is plenty. That is more than we need. We have a handful of clients. They're called Top Bananas. And like they are the entire business. Like people are coming in, people could leave. We haven't had very many leaves. leave, but there's a lot of inbound requests because they see that this person that I respect is getting a great product and they're sharing how easy it is. And how are they getting that? Because most people have had just nightmares with videographers, which is hard for us to understand because I guess it just sort of comes back to why people are doing it again. Like what we're doing is having fun with people. And at the end of the day, there's a product, the videos that they can use.
Yeah.
And I think people forget that like personal side of things. Like this is a person business, which I think almost every business is, especially service-based ones.
Yeah.
If you're not having a great time in the moment, I don't care how great those videos are. Those are not going to be really happy clients. If they're stressed out, if they experience something where they're telling other people how horrible it was, you're not going to stick around.
Right.
Where we end up spending afternoons going out to dinner, hanging out with people. Sometimes we stay at their houses when we go to like actually film with them because they've invited us. Like we were never asked. Like that's so not what we're doing, but we just click and we basically just work with our best friends is what it came down to at the end of the day. And I think that's important to realize because we also pick who we work with. We're not just taking anyone on because we all need to have a good time. If we're not having a good time, it's hard to make a great product out of it.
I think that's the other great thing about entrepreneurship is being able to work with people you really like and work with people you vibe with. And if it's somebody that you don't vibe with, then you just make the decision, I'm not going to work with this person. And you just don't have that ability when you're not behind the wheel. So I'm so on board with that selection level of like pick your clients. I know you said you're kind of jamming on something super secret right now. Anyone who's out there who's listening, what kind of help do you need? Or if you had to like wave a magic wand and like you got someone reached out to you that could help with XYZ, like is there anything that you need help with right now?
So this is funny because I never sort of take on anyone else. So this is the one thing is our business has always been take everything off of your plate. The only times we ever tried to outsource things, we would end up redoing it. And it was only design just a couple times and we never went back to it. But part of what I'm looking at now is actually working with more people. So trying to find the right people who can achieve very narrow tasks, I guess, that can then help realtors specifically. And that is what I'm thinking about. So it's funny that you asked that. I don't know that I have like an archetype of a person in mind currently, but I do appreciate that question.
But they
because
need to
working
know
with people,
they need to know social media, they need to know design, they need to be able to post, or distribute content. Is that kind of the genesis?
potentially. So that's the tough part. I'm such a systems person that I basically someone who wants to get a job done and get it done right every time. That's more what matters than any skills for me. So like we can teach the things that we need done and create those systems.
One final question before I let you go, because I have a lot of people who follow my page who are in the fitness industry. Of course, they're going to want to know like what's your go-to workout at this moment and how do you feel like fitness has impacted your entrepreneurial journey?
So that was a big part of what I was doing for a while. We had a platform called Paleo Porn. So it was food porn, not porn, but we did a lot in the paleo space in the early days. So I've been like gluten-free, sort of basically following a paleo lifestyle since 2008, 2009. It's been a huge part of who I am, not paleo specifically, but health and wellness. But I think that's so important that we can't actually show up completely if we don't feel well. So to me, that's so just vitally important when it comes to diet and sleep and exercise. I do have to say that fitness wise, I have fallen off of where I used to be pretty dramatically, but I'm very simple when it comes to that stuff. Literally, if you see right here, this is my squat rack, like this is my office / gym. So like I do squats, I do like trap bar deadlifts and push-ups and pull-ups and really basic stuff, but having access to it all the time is really nice. It's just a really simple setup. But yeah, usually I would try to be fasted in the morning when I wake up, just do a small workout. I used to work out much more intense, lift heavy, and that's sort of fallen by the wayside with everything else that I'm doing.
All right. Well, somebody up in Chicago's got to connect with Jeff. We got to get him back on this fitness grind. We got to bring that A+ effort to get A+ results.
Nice.
Is there anything else that you want to comment on that we haven't talked about? Any advice that you want to share generally?
I feel like I haven't helped you enough. I actually ended up you got me to talk about myself, which that worked. So I don't know. But yeah, I'd be happy to help with anything that you would need too, even just as a sounding board for anything you're thinking.
I appreciate you so much. And we'll connect at VCon, and then maybe we do like a round two. We'll come back to all of the things once I have a few more podcast episodes under my belt and know a little bit more about what I'm doing. Then I'll come back with some more educated questions for you.
No, it's all good.
Thank you so much for coming on to the Society Pod, Jeff. We really appreciate it, and I hope everybody enjoyed this episode.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Society Pod.